Welcome to my channel. We're going to talk about jQuery today and the selectors. That you can use with them. Okay, so let's begin. What we have here is just a bit of stuff. So there's two ways to actually do this jQuery selection function, and one where it just says jQuery, or you could do just a $sign. That's a lot more simple, okay? And in jQuery, we use a $sign for basically it's the etiquette. You don't have to put it, but it just indicates that you're using jQuery information there. And you can put it at the beginning or at the end of the variable, like so. But most people, sane people, put it at the beginning of the variable. Okay. So, we've done that. Now let's look at this. This is called the universal selector. You may have seen this in regex or in CSS, and what it means is that it's selecting everything in the DOM. So this will select everything. Now to illustrate this, let's take a look at something I've created right here. So we have this function that when the document is ready, then it will check if this button right here has been clicked or not. Okay? And then when it is clicked, then it will check if isWrite is equal to false, which by default it is set equal to false. So it goes in and then it adds 250 pixels to the left of every single element that is animatable. And then it sets isWrite to true. So then it will also check the next time that it clicks, and since it is equal to true, then it will go to the else statement right here. And it will animate it to the left. Well, it'll animate it back to the left. And it'll remove those 250 pixels. So then it sets that. So it's able to go back and forth between those two states. Now, let's take a look at it in this screen right here. You can see this illustrated quite simply. Alright, now let's go back to the code. I'm going to go back to the code. Okay, so now that we have covered that, let's go ahead and look at class and ID selection, as well as a few other things. So you can select any element with an X class name. In this case, the class name is class name. And you can do the same sort of thing with the ID name. So if the ID name is ID name, you just put the hashtag before it. If you're looking for the class, you do the dot before the class. Okay. Now, what if you want to get an element who has a class name of class name and class name too? So this one, an element has X number of classes, but the two of them are class name and class name too. So you'll get all of those types of elements that have both of these classes. Okay. Now it doesn't make sense to do that with IDs because IDs are unique. There only should be one per element, and there should only be one ID of that type of that ID in the entire DOM. If people use IDs differently, then I have a problem with that. Okay, now what if you wanted to get both those elements that have the class name of class name and the class name of class name 2? Well, put a comma there. This works also for these guys. So you might do this with a class name, and you'd end up hopefully selecting 2 elements if you have the ID names correct. Alright, so that's that. Now we can, of course, do similar things. We can select a div, any tag name, right? We can also select only divs of a particular class name. So we're saying here, look for divs that have the class name of class name 1. Okay. Now, here's where we stuff everything together. Here's where everything gets stuffed together. Okay, so this one will look for an anchor tag that has the class name of class name 2 and the class name of class name 4. And it will also look for the ID, the element with the ID of ID name. And then it will also look for the div with the class name of class name 1. So that ties all those rules together. It's beautiful. I'm crying. You can tell. Okay, so this is hierarchy. This is a different thing. We're going to move on to that. And I'm going to do a picture here. So we have A and we have B. So let's say it's a span and an image. These are the 2 elements that we're dealing with in this case. So we're looking essentially for images within the images that are descendants of the span. Now, what does this mean exactly? So this means that it can be this guy and it can be that guy. It also can be this guy. Okay? Because it's everything that is a descendant of the span. Okay? Because span is A. Okay? So, now, if we instead say greater than, then what we're saying that it only applies to this layer here. Okay, so these are the only ones who are allowed to be selected, okay, when it is the greater than sign. Now, what is it talking about when it says A plus B? A plus B. This means we have a span right there in the DOM, open and closing tag, the whole shebang. I'm simplifying right here, right now. And then we have the image tag, okay? It will only allow this, okay? It will only allow this. The plus will only allow that. Now, let's say we have this. This is not allowed because there's a paragraph in between the span and the image, okay? So that's not allowed. However, when we do the curly or wavy symbol, both of these are accepted. Both of them are accepted, meaning that the tag name B, which in this case, of course, is the image, all these images would be selected. Okay. Now we have covered that. Let us move on. Okay, so what we're going to cover next is, of course, attributes. Oh, I have a pun here. Let's see what else we can attribute our problems to. That's a pun. Okay. Okay. So now let's look at this here. We have attributes. Now, of course, all elements can have their attributes. They can have, of course, ID, classes, all those types of things are attributes. Even color and style, those are attributes, okay? So this one is just saying, does this one have this attribute? Does it have the value attribute? If so, I want that one. This one is saying, does this one have part of the value, just maybe part of it? So this, let's say that this is the whole, value, and we'll go like that, whole value. No, it should be a W. The whole value, and this is the partial value, indicated by it's not the whole length of the value, okay? But it will accept either of them when you have a curly V. Okay? Okay. So what's next? What's next? So this one is very simple. This one is saying that if it starts with this value, then we'll get it. If this, the next one is, we'll do it if it ends with a value. So this is start, and then this is end. Oops. This is end. And then we have the not value, which is just saying we don't want this if it has this value, right? And then we have the one that specifically is just saying we only want this one with this value. That's it. Okay. And then we have the star, which is just to say, hey, we want part of it. We want just the partial. We only want the partial. And then that has the attribute whose value, oh yeah, this is just saying it'll accept the value if it is the value or has the value and a hyphen, as you can see here. Okay? And finally, we can, of course, mix and match all of these. Attribute statement 1, we could have attribute statement 2, and that is how that works. Beautiful. Hey guys, thanks for watching. This is part 1 of part 2 of the jQuery lesson 2 series of selectors, so catch me next time for the rest of it.